when you first found out that Daddy didn't believe anymore in our church and being a Mormon? What did you feel?
I kind of felt sad, and I felt like Dad was trying to avoid me.
What did you want to say to him?
I wanted to say, can you please come back? It was a very hard time for me.
What would you pray for?
I would say, please, please, please bless that Daddy will come back to the church.
Welcome to Unequally Yoked, the podcast from couples in mixed faith relationships. We are starting this podcast for the purpose of bringing some support and some perspective to the lives of families who are impacted by a spouse who no longer believes. This, of course, is our pilot episode. We recorded it on a little handheld recording device. Now we're recording on better equipment, but this first episode isn't going to be as high quality as what we intend to produce in the future. Having said that, we want to get it out there and give you a chance to listen to it.
I had no idea this was going to be a real thing.
We were just kind of clowning around and decided to try it out.
But after a lot more thought, we realized this might help some people.
We want to, if we can save one marriage through this podcast, it'll be worth it.
Maybe it will be ours.
I hope ours is already saved, but you're absolutely correct. Okay, so without further ado, I'll give you our first recorded podcast, and hopefully you enjoy it. And we'll be producing these probably once a week, at least at the beginning, and then we'll see how it goes after that. But at the beginning, you can expect a once-a-week episode, and we're getting stuff in the works right now.
We'll try to stick to about a half an hour.
Or an hour. This first episode's going to be an hour.
It is?
Yeah. Most of our episodes are half hour to an hour.
We talk too much.
Common length of time for a podcast is an hour.
Fine.
Say hi, Naomi.
Hey, it's good to talk, I guess.
Yeah.
Not meet you, but...
This is our first time doing a podcast, and we looked out in the world, and I've been looking for a podcast for couples in mixed faith marriages, and I haven't found any, so I thought, why not start a podcast?
As well.
Yeah.
We've been working through our own crap. Maybe some other people are. We might be able to help.
Yeah. And we want to keep it real. We'll be polite to each other, and I'm sure we'll get into debates and disagreements, but the point of this is going to be mostly to talk about what we can do as couples to work through our differences and still come out on top and stronger for the effort.
I don't want to debate.
Oh, we're going to debate a lot.
Oh, we're not going to debate.
Well, we're going to disagree, not about church things,
but we're focusing on solutions here, people.
Yes, we are.
Solutions.
See, now you're disagreeing with me.
Way to compromise. Dork.
We wanted to just start off with talking about ourselves, how we met, who we are, where we're from. I'll just say briefly, I am a former Latter-day Saint, former Mormon. I left the church officially about 2 months ago. I stopped believing about 5 or 6 years ago. We can get more into that in a little bit, but Naomi?
Yeah, I am still a very active member of my faith, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, otherwise known as Mormon.
See?
Or LDS. I believe I may not be, I don't know, I think it's hard when you're looking at any sort of religion. People try to fit each person into a box and say, oh, well, they all must believe this particular way and interpret everything this way. And I don't believe that. I believe that there's many ways to take the same truths and apply them in many different ways. And I don't think you can meet one Mormon that has the exact same beliefs as another. They're seeing things and interpreting things the same way. I, of course, have my own spin on how I think the doctrine of my faith goes and try to apply it in a way that works in our marriage and in our home.
And you've been really good about that, too. But, I mean, I will say, she talks about people painting believers into boxes. I think she means me.
Oh, it's not just you, honey. And you certainly have learned to not do that. You see it in the faith, members, believing members, non-members, people of different faiths thinking and looking at other faiths. People like to categorize. We like to put things into boxes and make it easy to understand. And the truth of the matter is, with any theological thing, especially religion, when they present the information, people tend to like certain things more than others, and they accept this and take a little piece of that, and maybe they lay aside another thing and go, well, I'll figure that out later. I'm not sure how that applies to me right now. So it's almost like they're sifting through and keeping what works for them and what doesn't, and that's a very personal list that you end up with, and the way that you would explain a doctrinal term or a truth that you believe would be totally different by somebody in your own belief system and faith. It would be a different spin.
That reminds me of, remember when we first met, we had your friend in my house in the basement?
Yeah.
And she asked some question. I was fresh off my mission, and she asked some doctrinal question. I don't know if you remember this.
Oh, I remember.
I went into some...
It was at a basketball game.
Well, no, it was also my... Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but
she asked some religious question, and I went into probably 5-minute long explanation about the nuances of all of the answer that needed to be given, and
feelings, things to think about, belief systems.
I tend to overprocess things.
Well, I wouldn't say that. You have your own take on how you approach it. And so anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I wanted you to finish. What your thoughts?
Afterwards, our friend looked kind of lost, like her question hadn't been answered. And I basically left, I don't know exactly if you want to say logic, out the door. The way I approached it was, well, what do you think? What are you feeling? How does that work for you? And, well, maybe this is what this scripture means. And I've always thought it's what this means. What do you think about that? And by the end, she'd kind of gotten a feel for what she thought you had learned in church and how that had to do with her. It wasn't an intellectual.
Yeah.
It was a personalized, what's working for you in your life? What's going on?
Yeah, and I guess to me it's a lot about intellectual. Let's talk a little bit about, because I think that's a really good subject that we can talk about some more and dig it deeper into. I want to just give a little bit of history, like talk about how we met.
I have not heard your take on how it is now that you don't believe.
I have my opinions.
Mind you, he is a non-believer of God or deity. The way that we met in Naomi land is very spiritual, and God brought us together in my book.
Well, I don't know, for the LDS members, LDS listeners and former LDS listeners, you've seen Saturday as Warrior,
which I always made fun of. Yeah. I thought that was everybody wants that, right? They have this dream of, you've promised each other before you came here to earth that you'll find one another and your true love's gonna win all and overcome and conquer.
And you're going to sing a song when you meet.
Yes. The flowers will bloom and it will just be this. And you'll know each other when you... I made fun of that, and yet when I saw Ben the first time I met him, I heard in my mind, and I heard a voice say, "You're going to marry him." I thought back in my mind, no, I'm not, because I had other plans. I had a trip to Jerusalem to study at a school there set up. I had a missionary that I was writing to that it was kind of the idea that when he came home, we would, I guess, experiment with the idea of maybe approaching marriage. It was to that point. And I even joked that marriage, I would go, "Oh, murder. Oh, I mean marriage," and laugh about it because I wasn't at that point. I avoided him like the plague for the next 2 weeks.
Avoided me, not the missionary.
Did. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I avoided Neal like crazy.
From my perspective, we were at the Institute building in my hometown. I was walking up, and I will say, this is the more modern spin on what I was going through. I wanted to get married. Every girl that I saw was a potential wife. Every girl. Like, I cuddled with one girl one night, and she didn't talk to me the next day. I cuddled with her on a Saturday, and she didn't talk to me the next day on Sunday. So I called her the next morning and woke her up to ask her what the problem was. I was very socially unskilled. I still am socially unskilled, but even worse back then. When I saw Naomi for the first time, her friend said, "Hey," because it was a mutual friend who we're still really close with. "This is Naomi, and she's dateless and desperate."
I had just told my friend, I'm like, I'm bored. Everyone's dating someone. I just kind of want to go on some dates and have fun. I don't, So she's like, "All right, I'll get you a date."
So I was the first one. I was the first victim of her cunning ways.
Friend, yes.
So
dear.
And I will say, I remember hearing something in my head, a voice in my head, telling me that we were going to get married. Now, was that me? Was that God? Was that somebody else? I am a lot more open to interpretation than I was. And growing up, I was the exact opposite of, in that I thought I had promised my wife in the pre-existence that we would get married. I knew that she was out there waiting for me. And even in high school, I always looked at girls and thought, deep down, could I be married? Could she be my future wife?
Is she your soulmate?
Is she my soulmate?
Your predetermined soulmate.
I had a girlfriend in high school, and as much as I wanted it to work out, I always believed deep down it wouldn't. We broke up while I was on my mission and got home and met Naomi, and she spoke in church. And every time I saw her, I told her how great of a job she did.
In our church, you say sister and then their last name, or brother and their last name. It was always Sister Winters. I really liked your talk. Every time I saw him, and I kept trying to avoid him because of this voice, and I didn't want to get married, and he would just get this smile. "Sister Winters, I really liked what you said on Sunday."
About 2 weeks later, on a Saturday night, it was the Saturday before Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday in 1997. I was announcing a basketball game, a girls' basketball game. In the college we were at, the girls' basketball game always came right before the guys' basketball game, and they'd hired me to be the courtside announcer for the girls. Naomi came walking in, and I looked at her, and I thought, at the end of the game, and I thought, I'm going to go corner her and sit by her.
And the background on that is I had put off my homework. And so the idea for that Saturday night, it was set apart for me to finish all this schoolwork, and I was just, hacking away at it, just chipping, and just kept feeling this nagging feeling. You need to go to the basketball game. And I didn't know was going to be there. You need to go to the basketball game. I was like, "No, I'm too busy." "You need to go to the basketball game." "No, I'm too busy." So I say this prayer and I'm talking to God and I'm saying, this doesn't make any sense. I need to finish my homework so that I'm not doing it on the Sabbath. I want to keep the Sabbath holy, right? Why would I do this? And on Monday I don't have time. And it was just so strong, though. You need to go to the basketball game. I said, okay, that's ridiculous. I don't even like basketball that much, but I guess my friends will be there. Went to the basketball game, walked in, and the only place there was to sit, only place there was to sit was by him. Oh, I had to. There was my group of friends, and they're all like, hey, hi, come on over, Naomi, and there it was, have a sit, and I had to sit by Neal.
And we talked for the entire game. I don't know who won.
I don't know anything about that game.
I'm sure people made baskets.
Probably. And ran.
And ran and scored points.
We could not. It was.
We talked for 2 hours straight.
Such a connection.
And then afterwards at the Institute building, they were showing Princess Bride, and Naomi was going to be in a talent show with a bunch of people. So we went and sat together and watched the Princess Bride about halfway through, and then she got up and deserted me.
I had to go rehearse.
So that was a Saturday night, and then Sunday I sat next to you in church, didn't I? Mm-hmm. And you said all the girls were like staring at me or something. I want to hear how cool I am.
I know, you were really cool. Well, it wasn't that particular. It wasn't during sacrament. It was, we were singing, and see, I was a music major. I've been a voice teacher, a piano teacher, so very into music, and I had kind of written this list of what I wanted in my future mate a while back, and I kind of had what I had to have in my spouse, which number one, was communication. So it was really good we got that. And then on my side of, I would like these, but they're not super important. And in my had to have, they have to feel and appreciate music. They don't necessarily have to be talented in it, but they have to really feel it like I do. And that was one of the things I loved about Neal was he sang out with all his heart. He couldn't carry a tune. He didn't know, higher was louder to him, but
I was a good singer.
He sang that song like it meant the world, and I loved that.
On my mission, I don't know if I ever told you this. My very first Christmas out, we had a Christmas program, and another elder and I, who neither of us had singing experience, started singing a song together, and the zone I was in was supposed to do a number, and they heard us singing. So they said, you guys should do the first verse of this song. I think it was Angels We Have Heard on High. It's like, great, I sound so awesome. And then the performance came up, and it didn't sound awesome.
Well, yeah, I've taught you, and you're good now. So.
Yeah, well, sort of. We talked that night. We went to church.
The next morning, and then I invited her over to my house on Monday to watch my favorite show in the world, which was Les Mis.
Dum-ba-da-dum.
Which I had never seen, never heard about. This was way before the movie became popular.
Yeah, this was when Colm Wilkinson and Philip Quast performed on stage in London doing the 10th anniversary thing, and they recorded it on video, so
I'm going to pretend that I know what he's talking about, but I don't.
It was great. It was great. She came over to watch the show. We sat next to each other on the couch, and then she leaned into me.
I did not.
She did,
I
put my arm around her.
We will never agree on that.
Yep. So we watched the show. It was great fun, and the whole time I was thinking marriage, marriage, marriage. And I think that night we went for a drive.
Yeah, you asked me to go for a drive.
And we talked marriage that night.
He just full on said, I don't know about you, but I keep feeling like we're supposed to get married. And I was like, crap. crap. What do I say?
And you said there was a war waged in heaven where we got our free agency.
I made up some lame answer like, well, now we have to be able to choose, and so we need to take our time. And whatever.
Yeah.
But by the next day or two, I'm like, okay, I know.
Yeah, I think you had agreed to...
It was Wednesday.
Wednesday or Thursday.
It was Wednesday. That's the reason why I accepted that. I mean, we pulled over and prayed.
Yeah, we
too.
did.
But the reason why was I came home and I was talking to my mom, and I was very, very careful to not...
Oh, that night, that Saturday night.
to not say the gender.
You went back to your apartment and called your mom.
Called my mom. I was very careful not to say the gender because I didn't want her to... I don't know. I didn't want her to bug me about boys. So I was just like, I met someone at the basketball
By the way,
game.
Naomi is the youngest of 5, so her mom had been around the block
She knew
four
a
other
lot.
times.
Yeah, she knew a lot. And she's always kind of been intuitive like that. So I was like, I met the coolest person. I finally met someone that communicates in the same style I do. And we had so much to talk about and so much fun. And she said, okay, now, make sure that you take enough time that you know when it's the right time to get married. Like, she said something like that, and I was like, Mom, what are you talking about? Well, because, you want to make sure that it's right with him. And I was like, I didn't say anything about it being a him. I said, and she kept going, and I just finally said, Mom, you're freaking me out. I'm going to hang up. So I hung up. And I decided, well, that was freaky. I'm going to go upstairs and talk to my roommates, see if I can borrow a dress or something,
For church?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
not for wedding, for church.
Yeah, no, to wear to church the next day. And we just started chatting, and I was talking about what it was going to be like going to Jerusalem. And they looked at me, and they're like, you're not going, right? And I said, what? And they said, you're going to marry him, right? And I burst into tears. I was like, no.
What were the tears? Sad, happy, scared?
Scared. I was terrified. This was not my plan. I had a different plan. God had a different plan for me, and I was sure my plan was more better. It was better than anything he could come up with. Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen.
You never know. It's been pretty good.
Yeah. So that Friday, you went home to Salt Lake. I'm from a small town in the middle of Utah.
Visited my family.
Visited her family, and I went up that Saturday morning to meet her parents. And I met her parents while Naomi was shopping for wedding dresses, right?
Yeah. I bought my wedding dress without having received a ring.
Yeah. And I had talked to...
What was it, a week later? Or was it 2?
I proposed to you on that Monday, the Monday after you bought your dress, the very next Monday. So
the lady at the store, she's like, now, if you buy this, you can't return it, right? Because, I didn't have a ring on my finger. I'm like, don't worry about it. It was pretty funny.
I met her parents. Her parents are great, by the way. Her mom's passed away 5 or so years ago. We miss her very much. We were just reminiscing about how her mom always left her mark on her telephones with all of her
makeup. Her makeup would rub off onto the telephone.
Yeah. I met her parents. I'm a very sarcastic person. Her mom doesn't understand sarcasm. Didn't until she met you.
Yeah,
she didn't understand sarcasm very well. I was talking to Naomi's mom and dad, and her dad seemed to understand my humor a little bit better than her mom did. So I dropped a line that I was sent home a year early for my mission. And everyone just kind of laughed, ha, ha, ha. And I thought they knew I was joking. About 5 minutes later in the conversation, her mom brought us right back to that and said, about your mission, why did you get sent home? And
because most people that get sent home from a mission have
they've had sex usually.
They've broken some commandment that's pretty serious.
I wouldn't call it commandment, I would call it rule. I met her parents, dropped the bomb that I was sent home a year early. Her mom didn't get it, but we explained that it was a joke. Her mom, forever after that, anytime I joked with anybody, made sure she let them know.
Now you're joking, right? And then, see, he's such a jokester, she would say to everyone.
Yeah. And then I proposed on Monday, and said yes. The proposal was lame. I told her I was going to break up with her and asked her to get a stick of gum out of my glove box, and there was the ring.
Yeah. He's going to make that up to me someday.
Someday, because what I did was not acceptable.
But it didn't matter.
No.
'Cause
You still said yes.
I did.
Yeah, we were happy. I was just excited to get married and to be with you because we ended up dropping out of school and living with her parents before we got married, and her mom watched us like a hawk.
We could have gotten into trouble.
Yep.
But we did used to cheat. Like, she would say, okay, now I'm going to only be gone for a little bit. You don't know how soon I'll come back. And there's no kissing while I'm gone. You guys know that, right? And so we'd go, uh-huh. And then we would get really close to each other and say, lollipop with our tongues out. And say just crazy words so that we could touch and that kind of thing.
It always felt good to touch your tongue with my tongue. Still does.
Still does. Dad and they started getting your sense of humor.
Yeah.
And so we go back to where we were going to school, and went back to class. We were both enrolled in college. I was taking like 21 credits. I had to get extra. Actually, no, it was more than that. To take more credits than were allowed. Most of them were music. I was singing 4 to 5 hours a day. I maybe slept 5 hours every night. I was like...
Were you on Ritalin?
No, I don't know how I did that. I was like in some sort of manic state or something, but I lived at the music place and had a lot going on. But needless to say, knowing him, I fell a little behind in my schooling.
Well, part of it was my fault, too. I mean...
You wouldn't leave me alone.
No. I mean, I guess it's typical of couples when they first meet to want to spend every waking hour together.
Yeah, you more than me.
Well, I was an obsessive...
I'm not complaining.
Compulsive.
It was nice.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Why did we drop out of school? I'm trying to remember.
Okay, so we both started talking, I guess just about our future and stuff, and where we were going to go from here, where we were going to live, what we were going to do, and do we finish the quarter here? And we both... Is this how it happened? I don't really remember how it happened, but somehow it came up.
Well, first of all, I dropped out of school.
To work. Oh, that's right.
And I got a part-time job making minimum wage detailing cars. And I absolutely hated it.
Hated that job.
One of the worst jobs I've ever had.
So yeah, that's how it happened. Then you came and home and I was like, honey, you hate this job. You cannot... Something's got to give. You can't do this. We got to decide what to do. And so we went into our own separate rooms and prayed about what to do. We hadn't even really talked about options.
Yeah.
And we came back out and both of us had the same idea that we needed to drop out and move down to Salt Lake where there were more jobs. And
better paying jobs.
Yeah. We're like, this is crazy. This is totally nuts. But we did it. And that's when we ended up living with my parents. So he slept downstairs and I slept upstairs.
I got a job at the Utah State Courts.
Yeah. I planned a wedding.
Yeah. That was quite the...
Which it was a quick wedding.
Yeah. I mean, I have to admit, even though we weren't having sex or anything, living with you really helped me get to know you and your family a lot better than otherwise. I mean, I saw you in the mornings, I saw you in the evenings.
Yeah.
Saw you all, in your element, so to speak.
Yeah, we got to know each other pretty well, pretty fast.
So we met on Martin Luther King Day, and that was, I don't know what exact date that was, last third weekend in January, and then we were married on April 4th, yeah.
That's pretty fast.
Yep.
And then I got pregnant with our first baby. Was it 3 months? Like 2 or 3 months?
3 months probably. No, probably 4 months because we had her 3 days before our first anniversary.
Yeah.
Wow. In other words, we relied a lot on what I would say our feelings, what Katie would say the spirit in our early marriage, and I think we did up until we still do to a certain extent. I mean, that's an active part of our life. I guess that brings me to a question for you, Naomi.
Okay.
The spirit, the spiritual feelings that you have that we shared together. How do you feel now that I don't buy into that as much or consider it as much as what I used to?
You don't see it the same way. I have a lot of feelings and thoughts about that. It's close to my heart because I hold it so dear. There were a lot of spiritual experiences that were very powerful to me, more so than what I feel willing to share.
And no one expects you to.
They're really personal. But I know that while they happened to me, someone had told me when those things happen, you write them down when they're fresh. So whenever I saw something or I heard something or had some sort of really outgoing experience, I would write it down in detail and how I felt and exactly what it was like. And then when it's been helpful, it's proved very helpful as I've gone through life, and those memories do seem to fade, and it's easy to start explaining it away. So I go back and I read through that and go, oh wait, that was real. I can't explain that away. That really happened. That's been helpful. So in my mind, that was the whole reason we were together, was God brought us together, that we were meant to be. That there was this, I guess that we really did meet in the pre-existence and promise each other that, we'd make a family and face life together. And it's really hard, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to know that some of those things you dismiss, like maybe they were in our minds. And some of those things, it's almost like the way that you look at it now diminishes the meaning of it, the importance. I feel that way.
You feel that way?
Yeah.
So let me say something about that.
Do.
We were talking a little bit about this last night before we went to bed, because it's such a tender and touchy subject. I think there is no way that we would have come together without those spiritual experiences. They're part of our history together. Honestly, I don't want to try and explain where they came from, how they came about, because I know for us at the time they were very real and very important. Had we not prayed together that night in the car, and had I not felt so strongly, I don't think we would have ever gotten married. And the same for you. I mean, you were going to go to the BYU Jerusalem Center, and you felt very strongly that change of plans, because we talked about her going and then coming back and then us getting married, but we felt very strongly that the time to get married was now, so to speak, was then. And to me, history is important, whether it's church history, U.S. history, world history. It's important to be honest about events, and to me that applies just as strongly in our lives together as it does to any big topic issue. So I don't feel comfortable in denying that we had those experiences together. They're very tender to me still. we don't talk about them that often, but I remember a lot of things that we did and said and prayers that we prayed.
Car wreck.
The car wreck, yeah.
We rolled our car 2 weeks before our marriage.
It was your fault.
You were driving, so...
She had a bag in her hand, and I wanted to hold, or in her lap, and I wanted to hold her hand, and I turned around and put the bag in the back seat. Never take your eyes off the road when you're doing 75 miles an hour. That's all I can say. Went off the road, came back on, and lost control and rolled. And the cop was so nice, he gave me a ticket, but he was very polite about it.
Lots of spiritual experiences surrounding that, actually.
Yeah.
Beforehand, during, after.
Yeah. And it kind of brought us closer together. You know, we felt very strongly. Very
Except
good.
for that it did break my nails.
Well, your nails always break anyway.
Not now!
No. So that's it on. I mean, what does that make you think when I say that?
That's good. That's nice.
But it still doesn't.
It's hard. I mean, because last night we were visiting with some of our friends. They recently had a horrible boating accident with their daughter. And they were explaining their experience and what it's been like and the things that they've seen as, the Lord's hand in their life, that there must be a greater purpose, a reason why their daughter is still here, that it was the Lord's will that, that she still be taken care of despite this happening. And it was hard to sit there and have those warm feelings while they were sharing that and believe them and know that I was squirming next to me and not feeling it and wondering, I mean, because we don't really talk about it, but wondering exactly what is going on in his head, exactly what he's thinking, and is it to me, is it like what I would consider mocking something sacred? He certainly wouldn't, and that's not how he would intend it. But, I mean, it's as simple as thinking, I don't know, I guess to me, I feel like a lot of people who are no longer religious or don't believe in God look at religious people or people who do believe in God as having been duped. Like maybe they're just not as smart as the rest of us atheists who have now seen the light, have figured it out. And on the flip side, you do have atheists who get frustrated that religious people, or I don't like saying religious people, spiritual people, I don't know.
Whatever you want to say.
However I want to look at them and think, oh, they've been led astray. They've been deceived. And so there's always this little underlying hurt of who's looking at who, looking down on them, I guess.
And you feel like it comes from both sides.
Oh, I admit fully that comes, and I try really hard not to feel that way, and I'm sure you try hard not to feel that way, and yet we both think we're right. So by default, that is implied.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense. We went to Lowe's the other night, and the checker lady who was helping us had a CTR ring on, which is in LDS culture is a very clear signal that you're Mormon. CTR stands for Choose the Right. And it was interesting because I pointed out to after we left that she had a CTR ring on, and what was your immediate assumption that
you were frustrated, upset, that it brought negative feelings?
True. It's weird because we no longer live in Utah, so the assumption that everyone's LDS no longer applies. But I saw that, and even though I don't believe and I don't belong, I kind of felt like, oh, look, there's a kindred spirit, somebody who might understand us, who is doing her best to get through life with the belief that at least used to be common between us. It's kind of weird because I kind of had a pride knowing that she did that, but at the same time, the religion, I have such a huge problem with the religion, and I get so angry. But the people, I feel like, for the most part, are really good. There are some whose social issues and social views really turn me off and make me angry, but
Both sides. I mean, no matter what beliefs there are,
yeah,
that's true for everyone.
yeah. But for the most part, I feel like most people are trying to live an honest life and be true to what they believe, whether you're atheist, agnostic, Wiccan, Mormon, Christian, whatever. Jewish, yeah,
Muslim.
yeah, any religion. And I think that we need to focus on what we have in common rather than what is different between us, which is why I want to do this podcast. There's a lot of groups out there on YouTube, on Facebook, that are made for each different. In Mormonism, I'm part of a group for people who no longer believe but their spouses believe, and group head, if she belongs to it, is for spouses who believe but their husbands and wives don't. And
It's like group therapy.
it's like group therapy, and it's not like
I don't know because I don't do it. But.
yeah, it's about sharing our frustrations and our feelings. In some ways, I worry that it can engender a feeling of us versus them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, but at the same time, religion can engender those same feelings.
Yes.
I mean, there's a real persecution complex in some religious people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they believe, okay, because somebody disagrees with me, number one, I'm being persecuted, and number two, this proves how right I am because I'm being persecuted. That's not everybody, but
Why would anyway?
yeah, that's
Another topic.
That's another topic. But the point is that we can get so focused on why the other person is wrong or why our feelings are more valid than somebody else's feelings and lose sight of the fact that we love each other and that we're married to each other and that we need to compromise and get along.
It is a big thing to not feel like your spouse thinks you're stupid, though.
Do you feel like I think you're stupid?
No, but you were... Okay. I have heard you voice that your concerns and your feelings about me thinking that you've been led astray, deceived, those type things.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly have feelings just like that about you thinking I've had the wool pulled over my eyes.
Right.
Because you want to be respected by your spouse. You want to feel an equal. You want to feel like you both look at each other and really say, yeah, they've got the same mental capacity and level that I'm on. And so there's always that underlying, well, they think they're smarter than me. They think they've figured it out better than me,
Do you feel like I'm condescending sometimes? Be honest. I won't be offended.
Let me think about this. I don't know. I don't know if I feel that way about you or if it's my own. I feel that way sometimes. I don't know if it's because of anything you do. It's just
like
something I feel.
Can you just for and I'm not trying. I don't want anything. I'm trying to pick a fight. I'm trying to understand.
Yeah.
Do you think can you think of any instances where you felt like I've put you down because of your religious beliefs? And I want to know so that I can improve.
No, but nothing's going to come to mind right now.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But, eating dinner with your group.
Oh, yeah.
Your humanist group. There was a character of a man.
Who embarrassed most of
the people there, I'm sure. But yeah, it was very condescending.
Yeah, he was over the top, and I don't think he was appropriate at all.
No. And I've had somebody close to me that I feel has been condescending. And I do feel, whether this has anything to do with you or not, but I do feel the more educated, like the more schooling you have, the more you don't look up to me for my mind. Like you think you're more, I do think that you think you're more educated about the world, that I'm still this naive person, that, you've had more experience, you know more of what's going on in the real world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I get frustrated sometimes because I can't talk to you about some of those things. And
You could, but it would be a different frame of reference because I would feel differently about it.
We've talked about some things, like gay marriage and all that fun stuff, but yeah, I guess there are current events that I get frustrated that we don't talk about, and there are church history things that we don't talk about that we see so differently.
Yeah, but I think you think that we don't talk about them because I'm unaware. Mm-hmm. And because I'm naive about it. And although that's true for some things, there are things I don't talk about with you because I think you're unaware or naive about it. And yet, I don't feel like that means that you couldn't be. Mm-hmm. It's just our experiences have been different. And yet I feel like, for me, that you feel or think that that I wouldn't be. I can't think of how to put this into words. Because maybe I don't feel that way. Anyway, it's just. But we both. I do. I feel looked down on intellectually.
Do you?
I just do. I do.
And it's by things that I say and by expressions that I make?
I don't know. Probably.
Okay, so what do I need to do to rectify that? Are there things that I should change?
Stop thinking that way. Realize I'm a stinking smart intellectual person too, even though I rely on feelings.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's
just weird because when we first met, I was the intellectual one. Mm-hmm. I was the one that was up to date, current on everything, had an opinion.
You were a debater.
Yeah, had an opinion, had all of these things, was very much into this intellectual stuff. And you were feelings. And now the roles have kind of switched where we're in a different mood of our life or phase, and I don't know why, but I feel like looked down on, like I'm not capable or have lost that part of myself, or that I've been so sheltered because of my religion. So
I've said things like that to you, haven't I?
Yeah. and naive. I guess you've called me naive. Which makes me sad because and upset because all growing up, my experience was very different than his sheltered experience.
I was very sheltered.
So I feel like he's just barely getting the experience that I had all growing up.
Right.
We went outside of Utah. My whole dad's side of the family is not LDS. You know, some are not religious, and it was normal for me to be around that atmosphere. And when I was younger, almost all my friends were not LDS. Like, I remember a certain year. People were people. They weren't a color. They weren't a religion. I don't know. It was just different. And so I don't like being thought of in that way because I feel like I've had just as much, you know, or like just because I haven't participated in certain things that I've believed are, you know, wrong.
Right. Well, I'm sorry I make you feel that way. When I say those things to you, which I'm going to try and do a better job of not saying them, but I'm sure I'll fall into that occasionally. But like, what is your reaction? Do you curl up emotionally and just shut down, or do you want to fight back? How do you feel about that?
Most of the time, I just kind of roll my eyes and then find a time and a place I can go cry.
You cry a lot when I say those things?
Not a lot. I kind of feel like it's your hatred for the church. It's part of your feeling of that the church is keeping people naive, oppressing them, or, you know, that you blame them.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. So that's another frustration of mine. I'm just like, why do they have to get blamed for things that aren't even true for me?
And why do you get blamed for things that aren't even true for you?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's something I need to work on and improve. Do you feel like in terms of my progression to this point where I say and do things, not all the time, but occasionally that make you feel looked down on, did it start when I first stopped believing, or has it just gotten worse? Is it any better than it has been?
I don't know, because when you stop believing, you just pretended for a long time that you believed and just went along with whatever. So it wasn't when you first stopped. It was, okay, so it got worse, and now it's getting better. It's like you kind of just had to kind of feel it and go through it, and now it's chilling off.
Right.
The more vocal I am saying, you think you know so much more than me. I've lived life too.
Yeah.
Not this naive person.
And I don't want to say talk back to me, but when you
stick up for myself?
Stick up for yourself, yeah. Yeah, talking back is a completely wrong word. When you stick up for yourself, what is my reaction? And you're very humble that way. You want to work things out. Do I ever fight back? I gotta think I fight back sometimes and get frustrated.
It's not like a fight with you, though. I mean, you're very kind. You know, you'll express your opinion to try to say, yeah, but it's like this, you know. You have to admit this.
Yeah, I mean, I get frustrated when you say that back to me. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I take correction immediately and change, because I don't. I still get frustrated and I still get mad, but I am trying to do a better job of listening.
You're really good at that.
And I'll admit, I do look down, not all the time, but occasionally I get frustrated and look down and say things that are condescending and rude, things that I should know better than to say. I mean, because you're my wife, and I should have your back, and I shouldn't, of all the people in this world that shouldn't feel bad about themselves when they're around me, it's you. And I do make you feel bad when you're around me. Not all the time, but occasionally.
Most of the time I feel good.
Yeah. And that's not fair. And I guess when I read of experiences where just the opposite happens, where the religious person makes their spouse look down on and bad because they don't share those same feelings, I feel bad. And I guess that's why I wanted to talk about this, is because I think each side needs to see that there's a lot of hurt and a lot of pain there. And we don't need to go into all of that right now, but it's tough on both spouses, and both spouses have very valid feelings about the situation.
Yeah. Oh, well, and I'm sure, because, I mean, the whole, a religious person looking at the other side and saying they've been deceived, they've been misguided, misled. You're going to have those feelings. You're going to, just like you're going to believe I'm naive, and somehow you have to find a way to do that and acknowledge you have those feelings, but still not have it lessen the person, lessen their validity. And I guess in my mind, the way that I've tried to do that is, well, aren't we all deceived in some way? Aren't we all? It's just as easily me, we're the same that way. We just pick and choose what we like thinking and believing, what works for us,
Do you think I'm deceived?
How can I not? I mean, if I think I'm right,
Yeah.
which I do, then yeah. Just like you have to think I'm deceived because you think you're right.
Yeah, and
right?
I have to admit there's a certain amount of cognitive dissonance may not be the completely proper word, but I have to compartmentalize those feelings.
Yes.
I have to say, okay, I understand how I feel about the church, and that in my mind I know that it's wrong and to a certain extent, to me, bad. Mm-hmm. But I have to support you and love you and accept that that's part of you, part of your life, part of who you are, and be happy for you that you find that. And that's a tough compromise sometimes. It's tough.
It's hard
reconcile.
To do.
Yeah.
It's hard to try to do that.
But is it worth it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it is
definitely.
Too. Yeah. I mean, I was listening to a podcast yesterday about this very topic, and just during it, I just got so grateful for Naomi and who she is in my life, and had to stop the podcast and call her and tell her that I love her.
That was the sweetest thing. Oh my gosh. That was the sweetest thing.
Because, I mean, we got, see here, so back to our story. We got married for spiritual reasons, but for me, we stay married because we love each other and because we want to make a life together and we're important to each other. And you're important to me, Naomi. I mean,
you're important to me, Neal.
Yeah.
We're like school kids.
Okay, I think that's a good cutting off point.
We're getting there, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm getting a little more emotional than I wanted to. I think we'll wrap this up. And next time we're going to finish our story, maybe get a little bit more into what we're hoping to accomplish with this. So stay tuned.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. You can check us out at www.unequally-yoked.com, where the discussion will continue. You can also look us up on Facebook at the group Unequally Yoked, and we will be starting a secret Facebook group for listeners of this podcast.
Tell us about your experiences and what you're going through.
And remember, this podcast is for both husbands and wives, the believer and the unbeliever.
And anyone that's interested in this topic.
Yes.
Maybe some family members, your mom, your dad.
Kids.
Kids, yeah. We want to keep this as safe and family. Well, some of our podcasts probably won't be entirely family friendly just because of the heavy subject matter that we'll be covering. But we want to encourage families and primarily the spouses involved in the marriage to reach out and to look to each other for support.
And to other people.
Yes.
Got to have a support group. So get talking. Don't ignore it, or it won't go away and it gets worse.
Yep.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.